Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to England once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel a couple of times before. Now, I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last few years, a few different styles, but if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they're probably best known for their different kinds of IPAs. I've had New England's, West Coast, black IPAs, and I think a few others from them as well. I have had one or two Imperial Stouts, and those have been pretty solid, so maybe it's best to say that this brewery is really quite well-rounded. But these days they're a very well-respected name in the English beer scene, but it seems that I haven't had one of their beers on the channel since 2021. I certainly didn't think it was that long. But the beer that we're going to have a look at today is one of their latest releases here in Hong Kong. It's a style that I think I've tried from this brewery before on tap, but I've never reviewed one in this particular style category from them on the channel. But it is a style that I very, very much enjoy, and I'm really curious to see how it turns out. So hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to go to England, like I said. We are going to go to the county of Suffolk, which is kind of to the northeast-ish of London. And we're going to go a little bit to the northwest of Ipswich, which is the nearest kind of big city, I guess you could say, to a little place called Badley. And Badley happens to be home to the wonderful Burnt Mill Brewery. So this particular beer is called In the Trees. It comes in at 8% ABV, and this one is an Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, red IPA. So yeah, this is one that I picked up from Craftissimo in Sheung Wan over on Hong Kong Island, and they recently brought in a big shipment of beers from Scotland and England actually. So yeah, this is the one from Burnt Mill that really caught my eye. They had a few different things, but then I saw red IPA and I was dead set on this one. I love red IPAs, and it's not a style you get to review or come across all that often, in fact, so that was the main reason behind choosing this one, plus the fact I know that Burnt Mill Brewery, the kind of more malty leaning beers that I've had from these guys have always been pretty damn good actually. So yeah, very curious to try this one. Let's crack on then and see what it's going to have in store for us. The In the Trees, a red double IPA, 8% ABV from Burnt Mill Brewery in Badley, Suffolk, England. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Burnt Mill Brewery before, and we will hopefully be able to add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the English playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to whenever I get the chance, but do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days, even if I do say so myself. And if you are watching from the kind of Suffolk area in England, make sure you check out my friend Jayco on his channel, Jayco Beer. This is one of his local breweries, in fact. So yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Burnt Mill Brewery then. So, Burnt Mill Brewery, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in a little place called Badley in Suffolk, which is just as I say, a little bit to the southwest of a town called Stowmarket, and to the northwest of Ipswich, northeast-ish of London of course, but that is of course in the county of Suffolk in England. So the brewery was founded by Charles O'Reilly, and they first released their beers in 2017. So Charles apparently discovered Sierra Nevada, and then he started seeking out lots of different world beers and spending a lot of time at Kernel and Brew by Numbers when he was living in London. So he then got into home brewing, and his first beer apparently was a clone of Kernel Double Citra, and he says he's been learning about beer since around 2011. But Charles was apparently drawn to Badley by the fact that they could brew beer with grains produced on the farm, and they were also close to their maltery, which was Muntons. But over the years, these guys have continued to build up the brewery, and the brewery recently, or currently, boasts a 15 BBL kit and numerous fermenters. The current head brewer is Sophie de Ronde, who was apparently one of the founders of the International Women's Collaboration Brew Day, and she's got a wealth of experience across the beer industry. Prior to working at Burnt Mill, she worked at Munton's Maltery in Stowmarket, which is of course where Burnt Mill get a lot of their malt, and she was actually, one of the interesting things about her is that when she was working there, she learned that she was allergic to barley and wheat, of course, which are widely used in beer. So this means that through her brewing, she's actually experimented a lot with using other grains, and she has to wear a mask when she's brewing the beer as well. But these days, Burnt Mill also have a tap room in Woodbridge in Suffolk, which is a collaboration with the Hopsters company, who seem to have quite a few venues. This opened in 2024 from what I understand, and as of March 2025, when I'm reviewing this beer for you, these guys have produced around 280 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. And as I mentioned to you, these guys, for me, if people ask me about them, I would always say that they're best known for their different IPAs. So yeah, this is this brewery is one that you definitely need to check out if you're interested in the English craft beer scene. They do some really solid stuff actually. But yeah, that is everything I can tell you about Burnt Mill Brewery for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, follow them on Facebook and Instagram, and you can of course check out the Untappd page to learn a wee bit more about all of the different beers that these guys have done. Or you can go and watch my friend Jayco. I'll try to remember to put the link to his channel in the video description below, because he knows this brewery pretty damn well. So yeah, let's go on then and have a wee look at the beer itself. So the artwork on this one, I have to say, is absolutely lovely, in the trees, which is quite interesting. Tells you a little bit about the beer on the back there, but there you can see the Burnt Mill Brewery symbol, which is, you know, pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but quite classy. Plain silver top on the can there. This one incidentally is a 440 milliliter can. And it says on the back here, in the trees, our brewer's choice beer by John Peachy is inspired by the folk horror writings of M.R. James. This brew reflects a stroll through an East Anglian pinewood, a good trudge along a coastal spit of Suffolk shingle, or an amble down a leaf-strewn high-hedged lane. John has chosen Chinook and Idaho 7 hops for this haunting twist of a classic West Coast base, best consumed in a wingback armchair by a roaring fire. Interesting. So yeah, this one should be quite nice. We know Idaho 7 quite well. I'm curious to see how it behaves in a red IPA base though, because, you know, in a New England base, which is where I'm most familiar with Idaho 7, it usually gives you like a lot of juicy mango and like passion fruit and papayas and apricots. It's the softer side of the tropical notes it usually gives you. But it's a 14% alpha acid hop, that one, if I remember correctly. Chinook is well known for its grapefruit and kind of piney characters, and that's also 14% alpha acid, both of them American hops, incidentally. But yeah, in the trees, 8% red double IPA. This one, it sounds like it's going to be a very old school West Coast type red IPA, this, which is one of the other reasons why I really wanted this. I've missed this beer style. So yeah, let's get it out into the glass and see how we get on. Yeah, let's do this. That looks pretty nice. So, there we go. Well, the camera's decided it's going to move up a wee bit there. Let me just adjust that. Don't know why it keeps doing that, in honesty. So yeah, anyway, this beer, I have to say, does look very, very nice. I wonder with this one if it's, it just says barley, hops and yeast. Doesn't say anything about rye. Could have had a little bit of rye in it. But anyway, before the head disappears on this beer, you can see that it poured with just under a half finger of a frothy, I would say kind of cream, yeah, kind of cream coloured head there. You can see some medium-sized bubbles on the surface of the liquid, a few kind of more soapy ones as you go further up, and that head is just fading away to be a more kind of thin and foamy layer there. But the colour of this is lovely. It's very much like a kind of stained mahogany, copper, I think is a good way to describe this one. So yeah, I've seen red IPAs this colour before. I've seen them deeper, I've seen them a bit brighter, but yeah, certainly this one is within the realms of what you would expect from a red IPA. But it is, I don't know how well you guys are going to see that, but it's crystal clear actually. If you shine the light through it, it's very bright, like a very bright kind of copper coin colour. But I think to you guys it looks a little bit more like a kind of stained mahogany on the camera. But yeah, one or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there. But all in all, it does look really Pretty nice, this one, and pretty much what you would expect from a red IPA, be it double imperial or whatever. So yeah, I don't think we need to say anything else about the appearance of this one. Let's go on and have a wee look at the aroma and see what it's like. Oh, that smells really damn good actually. Yeah. So if I was designing my own red IPA, probably what I would put in it would be like Cascade, Chinook, and probably a little bit of Amarillo or something. That's probably how I would go. But obviously there are many more hops out there these days that would work well with a red IPA. But you know, the classics I think were always a little bit of that. You know, Cascade, Chinook, sometimes a wee bit of Centennial as well, and a wee bit of Amarillo I think. This one, this is very interesting actually. The fruity character is kind of like, I get quite a little bit of like date and sultana and stuff out of it, which I don't really remember having had from the red IPA before. You know, I would more associate that with the more brown sugary beers, the Doppelbocks and the Scotch ales and stuff like that. So this is quite interesting because it has the IPA quality to it, but at the same time it's got a little bit of like a Doppelbocky Scotch ale, barley wine maybe, I don't know. It's got a little bit of that fruity note to it. It's interesting, it really is. Quite different this, and this is what you want after you've reviewed like 4,000 odd beers. You do want things that are different and going to test you a little bit. So yeah, this is a really interesting beer. I do get quite a little bit of kind of piney resin from it, which is going to be the Chinook. I get the sweetness of the malty backbone in there, and I get a lot of different kind of fruity character out of it. So yeah, there's quite a lot of nice stuff going on with this one, I have to say that. So yeah, let's try and break this down then and describe it a wee bit more in depth for you. So the backbone of this beer, you've got a lovely kind of fresh brown bready bread crust in there. You can smell that right away. So yeah, lovely fresh brown bready bread crust. There's a wee touch of like woody character to it, and there's a wee touch of kind of nuttiness as well. But yeah, the bready notes in this one are really interesting because it's a mix of like it's almost like a fruit bread type thing, like, you know, the bread you get with the raisins and stuff and sultanas and things through it. Really is kind of like that. So yeah, fresh brown bready bread crust, a little bit of wood, a little bit of cracker. Yeah, a little bit of wood, a little bit of cracker, and then on top of that there's a little bit of rye bread for sure. It really does smell like rye bread, this one. There's a sweeter, more wholemeal, or a lighter, more wholemeal brown bready character to this one as well, and then you start to get the brown sugars out of this. So yeah, there's a wee bit of like a toasty, there's a wee bit of like a kind of toasty brown sugar in there, some oily, yeah, there's a toasty brown sugar in it. There's also some more kind of like oily, sweet caramel in there. I'd be curious to know about the wort boil with this one, because obviously the thing with this is the longer you boil the wort, the more your sugar's caramelized, and you know, thus you get a darker colour of beer. But yeah, this one for me, it has a little tiny touch of like a leathery note to the brown sugar, which makes me think maybe they've given this a slightly longer wort boil to bring out the sweetness, if you want, because with a red IPA you do want a little bit of sweetness to it, that's for sure. But yeah, you do get a little touch of that. There's a toasty caramel, a leathery caramel, then a straight up sweet oily caramel to it, and I'm getting quite a little bit of like McVitie's digestive biscuity type character to this beer as well, which is quite interesting, I have to say that. But yeah, all in all, it's a pretty interesting beer, this one. I think we can safely say that from the malty side of things. But yeah, you do get a wee bit more of a nutty note out of this one into the aroma as well. But yeah, on the yeasty side of things, it's interesting for me because in honesty it has a very slightly like English Christmas pudding type note to it, and I know English Christmas pudding quite well because my dad used to love it. It used to be his birthday cake every year in February. My mum would make it. So yeah, it has a little bit, yeah, this beer really does have a little bit of a yeah, it really does have a little bit of a kind of English Christmas puddingy type vibe to it, which I find quite interesting. So yeah, the yeasty character's got a little bit of that rye bread, the brown bread, and then that kind of Christmas puddingy type vibe to it. So I find that really interesting. But yeah, all in all, aroma-wise, the malty and yeasty side of this one is pretty damn interesting. So I'm curious to see how that's going to turn out in the flavour. So let's go on to the hoppy side of things then. As I've often told you in my IPA reviews, there are 3 types of hoppings that you can do with IPAs. You've got early edition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil. It gives you a lot of bitterness and a deeper, danker green component. You've got late edition hopping, which takes place within the last half hour of the wort boil. A little bit of bitterness, mainly flavour and aroma, and it gives you quite a bright green component. Then you've got the dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that's all about flavour and aroma. And again, it gives you a very kind of bright green component. So yeah, the way that this one goes together, I think, is really quite nice. So yeah, all in all, the green component in this one, I would say, I think, just going by it, I think it's all 3. I think there's all 3 types of hopping going on here. I think the Chinook will probably be used as the early edition hop and maybe a little bit later on as an aroma hop. But yeah, the Idaho 7 will be the late edition hop for the most part in this one. The green component isn't actually too pungent in this, but I think when we drink it, we're going to get more of a green component hit, in all honesty. But yeah, there's a teeny little bit of earthiness in there. You can smell a little bit of the pine resin, of course, but I think it's muted by the fact that the beer is more malty leaning. But yeah, you've got some nice floral aromaticity in there, and oily sort of grassiness coming out of it as well. But yeah, the way that all of that goes together, I think, is really, really nice. Yeah, the green component of this one, I think, is very, very nice. So it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, I like. Yeah, I do like how this goes together in the green component. So let's round off the aroma section with a wee look at the fruity side of things. So obviously with this one, there is that wee bit of kind of grapefruity character to it, which you're going to get because of the Chinook. But yeah, there's a lot of like red fruity character to this one. And normally with the red IPAs, I think you would get a kind of orangey leaning thing because they use Amarillo, but here obviously we're using Idaho 7. And you know, it's interesting because like Simcoe, for example, if you put Simcoe in like a black IPA, it gives you lots of like black curranty and berry sort of notes, and it seems to be that the Idaho 7 is doing that in this one. So I'm getting things out of this beer like, you know, a bit of date, a bit of sultana, raisins, yeah, date, sultanas, raisins, I think is a good way to describe this one. Maybe a little bit of like blackcurrant and stuff as well. But the grapefruit is there too. You could tell me there was Cascade in this as well, and I would believe you. So that's quite an interesting thing to take away from this one. There's a slightly sharper red fruity note in there. It's not cherry, but there is a slightly sharper red fruit in there that I can't quite put my finger on. So it's not raspberry either. So yeah, really very red fruity leaning the aroma of this beer, but it smells absolutely lovely. So yeah, just take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it, because yeah, that's always half the thing when it comes to trying craft beers. But yeah, let's have a taste of this one then and see what it's all about. I'm very curious about this. This is In the Trees, an 8% red double IPA, or double red IPA, I'm never sure which way around to put it, from Burnt Mill Brewery in Badley, near Stowmarket, and Ipswich in Suffolk in England. Let's get stuck into this. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Ooh. That's pretty nice. First thing I'm going to say is very, very clean and drinkable beer, actually. Which is an interesting thing to say about a red IPA, because the thing is, for me, I always remember these beers being a little bit more kind of chewy and sort of oily in their mouthfeel, but this one is, it does have the oiliness, but it's very, very clean, actually. And you know, you have to remember, your palate is changing all the time. So probably because we're still drinking loads and loads of hazy IPAs these days, when you get something like this, it probably skews your kind of perception of things a little bit. So yeah, that's also worth kind of bearing in mind. But yeah, this beer, it does give you that big bitter hit that you want from a kind of West Coast American style beer. But yeah, it's very, very clean, just not quite as chewy as I've had from as I remember having had from West Coast IPAs before. I think what I said about the wort boil earlier actually is not really relevant to this one, in honesty. But yeah, still, it is an interesting beer, this one, and it is giving you the sort of flavour profile that you would expect, if you like, and I like it. That's the main thing, you know. I'm always just giving you my kind of initial thoughts on the first taste, but yeah, this is another very, very solid beer from Burnt Mill. I do like this one. I was just a little bit surprised at the fact that it was so clean and so drinkable at the start. But yeah, interesting one, this. And the flavour, this is the interesting thing with it too. When you take it in, this beer doesn't have so much of an impact flavour. This is a beer that's really a bit more about the way things come out into the aftertaste, if that makes sense. Yeah. But as I say, I do like this one. I think there is a wee bit of rye in this as well, just going from the way the the malt base is. So yeah, let's do this then. Let's break this beer down and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So middle third of your palate then. The backbone of the beer, you've got that lovely, slightly toasty rye bready bread crust in there. As you move further forward on that, on the middle third of your palate, you can feel that there's a little bit more of a kind of you can feel there's a little touch of like woody character comes out, but as I say, rye bready bread crust, and the toastiness and the dryness of that comes out later, but there's a wee bit of woodiness in there. There's a little bit of a kind of crackery note coming out of this beer too, and then above that you start to get you do get what feels like a layer of rye bread, more dense and slightly kind of oily sweet rye bread, and then above that there's a layer of a more kind of fluffy, light wholemeal brown bread actually. So yeah, a few things going on in this one. So yeah, it takes a little bit of time, I think, for the flavour of this beer to kind of grow, if that makes sense, because when you first take it in, it feels like it's very compressed and squashed together, but yeah, the flavour really starts to grow and bigging up a wee bit beyond when when your palate kind of adjusts to it. So yeah, you've got the rye bready layer, the wholemeal brown bread layer, then you've got the brown sugars coming out of this one, so you can feel the layer of like toasty brown sugar coming out of this beer, which is definitely, so yeah, that lovely kind of toasty brown sugary character coming out of this one. And then you also have the you've also got, like, on top of that, you've got the slightly more leathery brown sugar layer, but it's not overly leathery like as you would expect from a longer wort boil. But then in the dead centre of your palate, you get that little circle there where the kind of boozy notes come out of the beer, and that part of the beer is very kind of sweet and caramelly, if you like. So yeah, I do like how that pieces together. So yeah, for me, the brown sugary side of this beer is quite interesting. You've got that boozy concentration in the middle of your palate there, and into the aftertaste you get a little bit more of the kind of biscuity character out of this one, but you're definitely going to feel the flavour kind of grow and get taller throughout the rest of it. So that's quite interesting. Interesting stuff, that's for sure. But yeah, I think that covers everything we need to say about the middle third of the palate, other than the fact that there's maybe a little touch of nutty flavour comes out of it later on. So yeah, Anyway, let's go to the back third of your palate. As I've often said, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. And between the middle and back third of your palate, you're going to get different, you're going to get similar flavours, just at different intensities. So yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build-up in there. You've got the rye bready character in the bottom, the wholemeal brown bready character underneath, and then a wee bit of the toasty caramel on top. The base of that back third of your palate is a slightly more toasty and dry rye bready bread crust. You've got the crackery layer, the rye bready layer, which feels a little bit lighter, taller, and more airy. And the wholemeal brown bready layer, which sits above that, which again is a bit lighter, taller, and more airy. So yeah, on top of all of that, you can feel some of the toasty elements of the brown sugar kind of creeping over the top, which is quite nice. So you get that toasty brown sugary character coming out of this one, and then above all of that, you've got the yeasty character coming out of the beer. So let's have a wee look at that yeasty side of things then, before we move on to the hoppy side of the beer. So yeah, the yeasty side of this beer for me, it's at its core, it's got like a kind of more dry rye bready character to it, and then it's surrounded by a little bit more of a kind of sweeter wholemeal brown bread. I do get little elements of that Christmas puddingy character coming out of this beer as well. We'll come back to that in a minute, but yeah, the very edge of the yeasty character is a more toasty, bread crusty sort of thing. So yeah, definitely back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, the way that all of that pieces together in this one, I think is really quite nice in this. But it's a very clean red IPA, this one, in some sense, but you get the grainy flavours and stuff like that. What I was saying about the Christmas puddingy note, like in that border region between middle and back third of your palate, you can feel some of that Christmas puddingy type note coming out of the beer too, and a bit of it in the middle third of your palate too. So yeah, interesting stuff. Anyway, let's go on to the hoppy side of this beer, and it's quite obvious for this beer it has had early addition hopping, because you can feel that bitterness coming out of it. But yeah, in terms of the hoppy side of this beer then, in the back corners of your palate there's a nice little bit of earthiness in there, and then as you move further forward there's a wee bit of a herbally note, but then yeah, you get the big pine resiny notes which you would expect from you get those big pine resiny type notes that you would expect of Chinook. So that's definitely there. As you come further forward along the sides of your palate, there's more kind of floral aromaticity, and it's a little touch spicy as well. But yeah, round the front curve of your tongue, there's a little bit more of that kind of zesty, grassy sort of note coming out of the beer. But yeah, quite floral and spicy and piney down the sides of your palate, so a more West Coast level bitterness coming out of this. Let's look at the front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of things, just to round off this beer. So yeah, border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there, the brown bread in the base, the rye bread in the base, and then the kind of more wholemeal brown bready character sitting on top of that wee bit of the toasty brown sugar. But yeah, the base of the front third of your palate, the toasty bread crust, the rye bready layer, the wholemeal brown bread, and then yeah, you get a little bit of the toasty brown sugar and that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So, pardon me, yeah, the way that this goes together I think is really quite nice. So, fruity side of the beer. So at the back of that oily bubble, you definitely get the kind of grapefruity notes that you would expect. Yeah, you definitely get the big grapefruity notes that you'd expect of the Chinook, that's for sure. Then as you move further forward, on that, you have you start to get the other things coming out of it. So it's interesting. It's just really interesting the way this goes together. So the grapefruity notes kind of linger there, but as you move further forward, you start to get the sultana type flavors. Yeah, you start to get the kind of sultana type flavors coming out of this one. You get how do you say? You start to get the sultana in the base there. There's a little bit of an almost kind of figgy type character coming out of the beer as well. Yeah, dates. So you've got the grapefruit, like dates, grapefruit, dates, sultanas, a little bit of a kind of figgy note, and as you move into the front half of the front third of your palate, it's a little bit more, it's kind of a mix between orange and kind of candied strawberry and things like that. So yeah, the way that it the way that that goes together is quite an interesting but yeah, the way that this one goes together on the fruity side of things, the way you get this candied strawberry, orangey, figgy type thing into the aftertaste is really interesting. I've never come across a red IPA quite like this, but of course this is the Idaho 7 and the way it behaves in these beers. So probably, I don't know if there'll be another red IPA trend or something like that. I don't think there really ever was one. I think it was just West Coast breweries in the States were doing it with rye and things like that in the beer. But yeah, this could be an interesting area of experimentation that we haven't seen from a lot of breweries, in all honesty. So yeah, this beer has given me a few little elements of food for thought, and as I say, after 4,000 odd beers, that's definitely what you want, in all honesty. So yeah, the way that this one goes together is pretty nice, and I'm glad I got the chance to try this. A proper old school West Coast Red double IPA, this one. So yeah, let's round off the review with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel then. So for me, this beer, it does thicken up the more that you drink of it. So I'd say it's top end and mid-bodied. The carbonation is very, very smooth. It's got a big kind of slick, oily mouthfeel to this one, but it feels very, very clean. As I was saying, not quite as chewy as I thought it might be, and that maybe just is the water in this here, because your water profile plays a big role in your mouthfeel, in my opinion. But yeah, the hop, the how would I say, yeah, the IBU side of things for this one, I think this is maybe a 70-80 IBU beer. I think it feels about that. It could be slightly less, maybe 60-70, 70-80. It's somewhere in that region. I don't think it's a full 80, 90, 100 IBU beer, in all honesty. But yeah, the malty back one, this one's a bit of toastiness underneath, smoothness in the middle, and a dry sweetness on top. The fruity side of this one's quite red fruity and sweeter into the aftertaste as well. But all in all, a really solid red double IPA. This one, I maybe would have liked it to be a little bit thicker and more chewy, so maybe a slightly longer wort boil with this, in honesty. But all in all, a very, very good red double IPA. And as I've said before, Burnt Mill Brewery are good with the kind of maltier side of things with IPAs as well, actually. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This was the In the Trees, an 8% red double IPA, or double red IPA, whatever you want to call it, from Burnt Mill Brewery in Badley, near Stowbridge in Suffolk, in the southeast of England. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Burnt Mill Brewery as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, Slàinte, Skål, cheers, check out my social media, check out their social media, and I will see you later. Ciao just now.